Amboy, Amy.
Enjoying the show?
I know, enjoying the interview, I see.
Alright, those are the future superstars, if they're not already. Temple of Fine Arts, a lot of exciting programs are going to be coming up from them as well, so we'll keep you posted on that. But back here in the studio...
Moving on to reality. Talking about education, because there's recently the National Education Convention just happened, and apparently they have adopted an 11-point resolution basically to help promote the quality of education in Malaysia. So we'd like to welcome in our studio.
Our guest in the studio today, Professor Abdul Rashid Mohamed, who's the Deputy Chairman, Head of the Education and Human Capital Development from the National Professors Council. So thank you so much for joining us, Prof. 11-point resolution to help promote the quality of education in Malaysia. We know how important this is for the education system. Can you just give us, a run-through of what all these 11 points are?
Thank you, Zaria.
Welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. As you said, it happened last month. There are 11 points in the resolution. Basically, the 11 points are equal access to quality education based on international standards. That's one. The second thing is ensuring that each student is fluent in Bahasa Malaysia, in English, and another language, probably a language that is spoken locally, perhaps Mandarin or Tamil. The third thing is developing values in Malaysians, value-developed Malaysians. Fourth thing is to ensure that education, teaching is a profession of choice. And fifthly, it's ensuring that high-performance leaders in every school. And also to empower the state education department, or schools, in fact, to solve local problems as the needs basis. And the seventh thing is to leverage information and communication technology to enhance the quality of learning throughout Malaysia, and also to improve the service deliveries of the Ministry of Education, its capacities and its capabilities, and also to collaborate with parents, communities and private sector and all other stakeholders, and to ensure a good system. And also to maximize students' learning outcomes. It is in a way that every dollar we spend must be accounted for, and to improve transparency and for public accountability. These are the 11 resolutions we brought up.
Now we're talking about the equal access, trying to bridge the gap between the rural schools and the urban schools. What, in your personal opinion, what should actually sit at the top of the list to ensure that this can actually be materialized?
Actually, there are three things that we should do. Basically, you should have quality teachers. All the research shows that quality teacher is one of the main things. The second thing is we must have good education leadership. And thirdly, there must be a good plan. And this is what the blueprint is all about. So these are the three things, in my personal opinion, that it should
be addressed.
Well, let's talk more on the Malaysian education blueprint that's going to happen between 2013 until 2025. I'm sure it's going to be done in stages, right? What's going to happen starting next year, 1st of January?
Which is about 3 months, 4 months from now.
Well, if you ask me, Zamal, that way, this is not a race. You put a stop when you start. It doesn't happen like that. It is a plan, and in a plan, it is over 12 years. It seeds the 2020 vision. It goes up to 2025. So in a nutshell, it is strategically, the plan is strategic in the sense that it is bottom up, because it comes from the public. Everybody is involved. Well, of course, no plans are perfect, and we have to move on from there. And starting from 2013, we should learn what is the aspiration of the blueprint. And when a plan is destroyed because people do not understand the aspiration of the blueprint. So I think starting next year, the first stage is to understand and learn what this plan is all about. And we can move on from there. One of the aspects that I like about the blueprint is the nostalgic aspect of it. We used to talk about the good old days the Eastern values. All this is incorporated into the blueprint. We used to take care of our the elders, the children, but lately we see a lot on TV, children being abandoned and all that. So this values needs to be reinstated. But at the same time, the blueprint also considers the future needs of the student, the needs of the global citizenship. So this is a combination of the values and the needs, actually.
And this calls for a huge responsibility shouldered by the council as well. So what do you see your role and your peers in this?
Well, the council needs to basically think that it cannot work by itself. The council, when you talk about the council, you're talking about the Malaysian, the Majlis Profesor Negara. Zamir was asking me as to how you translate that. Basically, it's a Malaysian Professional Council. You know, so the Malaysian Professional Council should not cut corners, in the sense that we tend to rush things, to do things in a rush, and we end up, even a good plan doesn't work that way. We should reflect on it. As I said, far too often we rush into things without proper planning and considerations of certain things. This blueprint has been deliberated and considered, and by many people, and therefore I think it's enough said. Now it's time to work. Secondly, the Majlis Profesor Negara has the responsibility to bring all parties together. This is their responsibility. It is established as a pemikir negara, the thinkers of the country, and therefore it is a responsibility to bring people together. And I think that the things that they should be doing is to bring their knowledge and experiences to the public. This is where the Majlis Profesor Negara need to do. Thirdly, it needs to also be responsible because to put the Wawasan 2020 back on track. I'm not sure you know this, but to have the developed nation status, we should have at least 60% of the students doing science and 40% of the students doing arts. But currently we have not reached that stage. We are hardly about 40% on the science students. The Majlis Profesor Negara has a responsibility to demystify science and make it a subject of choice now. And finally, I think MPN also needs to get the public universities, to conduct more studies and to provide its expertise to the schools, because the schools cannot be just left to educators. There are a lot of things that these educators may not be able to do. For example, into issues of health, issues of construction of buildings of the schools, for example. The other academician needs to take part. MPN can bring this together.
Right. And aside from Majlis Profesor Negara's roles, what about the roles of the public universities? What can they do to make this education blueprint 2013 until 2025 reality by the end of the target? 2025, they want to reach that target. So starting next year onwards, what can the public universities do?
The public universities is a public concern. It means it belongs to the communities. Okay? So the public university must work in tandem with the blueprint, aspiration. I said aspiration, not just word by word of it, but the aspiration of the blueprint. And he has to talk to think about access and equity to higher education. How do we get that to be done? Because equity is not equal. Some people may be better off than others. So how do we normalize this? And the issue of to keep improving the quality of teaching and learning in universities itself. The issue of disseminating research findings. Some of our research findings are stacked up in the libraries gathering dust. And we need to talk about internalization of our programs. We also need to talk about putting more emphasis on lifelong learning, not just about skills oriented, but educating the public also. And we also have to, more important, demystify the university, because it is not a place. It's not a place of a bank of knowledge. You see, it has to be a place of learning. And the communities must be given that. So in short, public universities need to open its doors wider. It has opened its door, but it needs to open it even wider. It should belong to the public. and therefore the local communities too. And the board of governors, for example, should be, to me, this is my personal opinion, you know, my bosses may not agree with me, but this is my personal opinion, that the board of governors should consist also of people of all walks of life, and they should make up the local communities. The public universities must be given more autonomy, in my personal opinion, time and space to plan and work its plan, but he must be responsible and accountable for their actions. So, in other words, there shouldn't be any more excuses if they fail to achieve the targets, because these targets are set by themselves.
Now, Prof, having said that, you mentioned more involvement in this. Now we have this really wonderful education blueprint, but how do we get our fellow Malaysians to be more engaged in this, not just looking at it on a short-term basis? The private sectors, government, of course, the students, educators, researchers. How do you get more people to actually understand and have the embodiment of the education blueprint?
Well, as I said just now, this is a bottoms-up blueprint. The Ministry of Education has gone to the grassroots. They've gone and get people's opinion and all that. Of course, you cannot accommodate everybody's opinion. You have to analyze and get perhaps the common dominators and put things into work. So at the initial stage, it's very important that we get the public opinion on this. But at the same time, the professional opinion needs to be considered too. Okay, this is the initial stage. But as we go on, understanding it is also important. Understanding that it is not something cast in stone. It needs to be adjusted accordingly. Come 2020 or 2025, new problems are going to come.
That's right.
Maybe in 2025, the issue of global warming is going to come in. But that doesn't mean that we should change every time. We do not change the mean structure, but these sub-branches needs to be adjusted accordingly and adopted certain new
It's
things.
dynamic enough to actually adapt to changes. All right, thank you, Prof. Before we let you go, a conclusion perhaps?
Yes, and maybe where can we find this national blueprint?
You get that at the Ministry of Education. But it's on the website anyway. So you can say, you can get it on the website.
That's right. So
it's all there.
Just type National Education Blueprint and then you'll get
moi.gov.my.
you can get the PDF format.
Where can we, how do we, make steps towards achieving, what's been planned out?
The thing is, it is a public document. It comes from the public. The public has the right to discuss, debate on it. But sooner or later, we have to agree on something. We can even agree to disagree. But we have to move on from there. We have to work, and work has to start soon. The sooner we start, as you said, 2013, the better. But as the saying says, education is not instruction. Instruction ends in the class. Education is lifelong. And as the Malay proverb says, kesempatan yang kecil serangkali merupakan permulaan kepada usaha yang lebih besar.
Small instances, for bigger efforts. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us. We've just talked to Professor Dr. Abdul Rashid Mohamed, who's the Deputy Chairman of the Head of the Education and Human Capital Development, also from Majlis Profesor Negara. Prof said work starts today, and I would say, Prof, actually work starts yesterday. Although a lot of people think work starts tomorrow. Business as unusual.
That's right. And before we move on to our next topic, talking about how safe it is for us to invest in gold, we are going to take a really short break and also bring you a very special performance from the people from Aswara. So we'll be right back.